Hey everyone, it's time once again for another episode of Mid-Card Mana. We got over here Sam Keola, the wrestling connoisseur. We got over here the loose cannon. All right, so we are talking about the Dynamite after AEW's Revolution pay-per-view. I think you have something in your beard, by the way.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. We just talked about the actual results of AEW's Revolution, their second Revolution pay-per-view. Of course, the polarizing ending, right? The big explosion. So they had mentioned that it will be addressed on Dynamite.
And that it was kind of.
It kind of was. It was.
There was some good stuff that happened on Dynamite. I got, to tell you, I enjoyed Dynamite probably more than I've enjoyed any wrestling program as of late. It only took me like 4 sittings to finish because I have monsters. But, yeah, I enjoyed it. Do you have the match, the card order?
So I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it's in order.
Okay.
But it talks about, let's see, trying to remember what the order was of this. But there's the Ethan Page segment. So Lee Johnson versus Ethan Page. Christian, the women's trio tag team match. So that was Britt Baker, Maki Itoh, and Nyla Rose versus Hikaru Shida, Ryo Mizunami, and Thunder Rosa.
I don't remember if that's the order or not.
I don't believe it is the order, but it's not
Yeah.
showing me the specific order. It's just sort of saying these are the highlights.
Oh, okay. That particular match, I believe it was a 6-woman tag match.
Yes.
It was pretty interesting. There's a lot of disparity about Maki Itoh using the microphone, how that appeared.
Hey, she was a professional. She finished her performance, even though people were trying to stop her. She finished her performance, damn it. So
I think the biggest thing I liked about that match was Vicky Guerrero getting involved.
That was fun. I did like that also.
But I mean, the match itself, showing the alliance of the heels and pushing storylines forth. You gotta make moves, and I think for AEW, one of their weakest things is the women's division. Not to say that the women's division is weak or doesn't have a roster of talent, because they do. I would say even comparable to any roster of women out there. You have a really good women's division in AEW, and I know a lot of people will disagree with me. I think the problem is not being showcased enough. They have a good depth of women, but I feel like you need a show dedicated. And I say this about WWE too. You need a show dedicated to the women, because there's only so much they can do. They usually have a women's match or 2 even, and then they have like a Britt Baker segment because she's kind of the face of the women's division. So 2 to 3 segments a week is not bad, but I think when you have that much depth, you need much more. So hopefully going forward, when they get their next show, their next primetime show, we get to see that depth being put out there more so, because they need to build up a lot of these women. You need contender.
Definitely agree.
Where you feel like there's a real threat. So, yeah, I mean, so this match, I think it was good to start to set things up.
Yeah, no, I like how this gives a little bit more television time, for lack of a better word, exposure for the Japanese talent, of course, specifically Ryo Mizunami and Maki Itoh, on actual television, which we don't get to see that much. So I hope that this will sort of show people, why these women were chosen, why they matter, why they could be great additions to the AEW women's locker room.
Yeah.
All right, so I found a card order now, so I'm gonna backtrack a little bit. So the first match of the night was Matt Jackson versus Rey Fenix.
I should have known that because I watched it like 3 or 4 times. I had to restart so many times. Great match.
Yeah.
The more I see of Rey Fenix, the bigger of a fan I become of him. There's a reason why they call him one of the best in the world. And
definitely. And these are two guys that have fought against each other a lot. So they know each other very well. They can work with each other very well.
Yeah.
I was very lucky to have seen the Young Bucks versus the Lucha Brothers at All Out 2019. Their ladder match, which was a ton of fun. Really good work all around. So it's hard to find a match between those two tag teams, or even singles matches of individual people from those tag teams against each other that won't deliver. So
yeah.
And in fact, interestingly enough, Rey Fenix is the one that ends up getting the win here with the Phoenix driver.
Yeah.
So maybe new contenders to the tag belts.
They are. Rey Fenix and Pac are going to be the contenders. So that should be a fun match in itself. I'm glad to see Pac getting more matches. So yeah, that'll be good. What you got next?
All right, so the next is actually the video message from Kingston and Mox talking about their side of what happened. So Eddie Kingston,
so much of me
go ahead.
Really wishes like it starts. You have Eddie Kingston going. Eddie Kingston's great promo, and you have Mox just sitting Weekend at Bernie style on the couch. And I wanted so bad for him not to speak at all and just sit there Weekend at Bernie's. Oh God, this would be a great way to send him off for their baby, for the paternity leave.
Here's my rebuttal. Here's my rebuttal to that. When you have two people that are as good at cutting promos as Kingston and Mox, you are not gonna miss an opportunity to have them cut an in tandem promo against another person.
I feel like we're going to get that.
It's too good
for a while.
Yeah.
I thought it was great. It was hilarious. It was a hilarious promo, especially when they start like going back and forth. You could tell it wasn't something planned. They just went there like, okay, roll the cameras. We're going to talk about it. It was great. It was a great build for the show. It was a great resolution for Revolution. So it was good stuff. Yeah.
And they got a couple of really good jabs in there. They're like, oh, Impact probably paid for this, right? This is Impact. That makes sense. It's Impact. And then the other one is like, when you got this bomb in the mail, did it have Acme written on the side of it? I was just like, this is good. And of course, Mox a great promo, Kingston a great promo. Getting to see them both organically kind of build it together, just good whole stuff.
And I love how it addresses like little tropes that wrestling fans pick up on now that they might not have in the 90s or the 80s or even the 2000s. Like Mox is like, what took so long? I'm out there getting my ass kicked, and you're in the back putting on your shoes and
put on your Timbs and making sure your eyebrows good. And and he goes, well, yeah, it's pay-per-view, man. I gotta look good for the pay-per-view. You know that. That was great.
Great
that was just so good. leave it to two people like Eddie Kingston and Jon Moxley to be able to figure out a promo to save it on the fly, to really sort of explain it away. And then later in the show we hear more from the other side of it. But the next match is quick match. It is Cody Rhodes back in action versus Seth Gargis, who I don't know who that is.
Let me just add this to the Mox Kingston thing.
Go for it.
For the people who complain about ex-WWE guys going places, this is why you shouldn't complain. Because you wouldn't see this type of promo in WWE.
No.
You wouldn't see the interactions of relationships built over decades in wrestling. And I mean, that's what you have here. You know, you have Mox and Kingston who have a past, who have a friendship, being on the road together, you know, fighting together in places and whatnot. And these things shine through and are acknowledged at other places. So you have a guy who's like on the up and up, like Mox. You have a guy like Kingston who, you know, maybe he hasn't gotten that success or that platform to elevate himself like someone like Mox has.
Yeah.
But now there is, and you can see the talent there. When you have Mox and Kingston together, it's magic, you know. So we've been seeing a lot of magic like that. I mean, all the Brody Lee stuff and everything. So you shouldn't complain when, you know, a talent gets signed somewhere else, not just because they're making money, because they can make money with other people too. Everybody.
Well, not only that, but then, you know, there's some, and not to just specifically say WWE, but it's not necessarily the best venue for certain talents. Their style is very different with what they try to produce for television, and some people can adapt to it but never really flourish under it. And you see this specifically with Jon Moxley, who I've talked tons about, you know. Dean Ambrose was great in WWE. Jon Moxley is phenomenal. Not to steal from AJ Styles, but it's a different level. It is a totally different level. And you see it in his promo styles and production. You see it in the kind of wrestling that he's able to do in the ring. You know, Mox has always been about deathmatch, and you see just how different he is in a deathmatch versus a regular match, and just how, for lack of a better word, how happy he is doing death matches, because that to him was his favorite growing up. And somebody pointed out, and I thought it was really funny, but they were just like, since Jon Moxley has come back to being Jon Moxley, this second run is Jon Moxley after the WWE stuff, he's just blatantly been cosplaying as Onita. And I was just like, actually, I never made that connection, but yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
And to get to see him kind of do that and be more of himself, and watch him shine as himself, as his own self-made project, his own self-made wrestler, his own self-made man, is just great. You know, it's blood and guts and all that, but it truly makes my heart happy, because you know that he is so much happier doing this now.
Yeah.
And it shows.
Interject that.
Yeah.
So the Cody Rhodes match, like you said, short and sweet. To note, he ended it with the figure four, which he has used quite often, but you know, interesting choices sometimes that we see, like Cody go to a submission instead of the crossroads or whatnot.
Well, I think too, his shoulder is still kayfabe injured, or actually injured. I'm not sure if it's a kayfabe injury or real injury. But he still has the injured shoulder, so I just wrote that off as he goes for the figure four leg lock, because he knows he can't really reliably cinch in the crossroads with his busted shoulder.
I like that we get some of these indie guys who are unknown for the most part to get a chance against someone like Cody Rhodes or something like that.
Absolutely,
just get them out there. on their big show. It's a big deal. It's a big thing for AEW to do it too, to start introducing these guys. Like Lee Johnson got that chance, and then now he's becoming a prominent aspect of the shows. This whole segment, though, the whole match and segment was to build for a Pentagon Cody feud, which, yeah, it's going to be great. I'm excited for this feud. Cody and I had a Twitter conversation about faces and heels and his view now of not necessarily getting away from that, but more so going protagonist versus antagonist.
Yeah.
And I was really concerned about that for AEW starting out in that manner, but it has worked tremendously well. And I think that's because they put the effort in protagonist versus antagonist and let the wrestlers still be themselves, but getting into situations where that works.
Yeah.
There's like companies that we've seen, not to call out WWE in particular, where you may have a failed face or heel turn, or it's missed, or it's rewritten or dropped and picked up later. They're able to do this and not necessarily have a huge turn, but just putting people in situations like you would see on a soap opera, where now all of a sudden they're heel, and not really having to change much. And I'll give them props. They've done this tremendously well. So Pentagon, now the bad guy. Of course, they removed him from Death's Triangle, like you talked about SCU. They kind of separated Pentagon. I don't know if he was injured or what before the ladder match.
I think it was kayfabe injured, from what I had read, that he had visa troubles, work visa troubles.
Oh, okay. But it was good because it separated him from Pac and Phoenix and their recent face run. So I feel like that separation really helped with this. Then you have him just show up for the ladder match, and then now here he is in a suit, the mask, and the whole segment I thought worked really well.
Yeah, and his calling out and saying, "You're lucky I didn't work your arm more, or else you wouldn't be able to hold your child."
Right. It was good stuff, So yeah, I'm looking forward to that feud. Good build. What you got next?
And then, so after that whole segment, because of course Cody goes after Penta, the locker room empties out to rip them apart, and then it cuts to Chuck Taylor and Orange Cassidy in an arcade, and Chuck's going, there's been a lot of things that have gone down between us and Kip Sabian and Mito. And he's like, just want one more match, and if best friends lose, he will just be Mito's butler forever. Yeah. But the stipulation, Orange Cassidy comes up with the stipulation of arcade machines all ringside, so they can throw Kip and Mito into all of the different arcade machines.
I think this is going to be a fun match.
Oh, absolutely.
It's something that hasn't been done. So this would even be a fun cinematic match, to be honest. Having a wrestling match in an arcade itself, So yeah, this is going to be good. I think it'll be a fun match. I'm wondering if how bad Trent's injury is, and if he'll be back for this.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the timetable is on his recovery. I gotta admit, I haven't.
See Trent's mom bringing him in with the van, and the back door slings open and Trent gets out.
As you know my feelings on Trent Beretta. I don't dislike him, but I do feel that he's often overshadowed by whoever he's partnered with.
Yeah.
Always. It's unfortunate for him. I do feel bad for him. Like when you look at him and Rocky Romero, one of my favorite tag teams of all time, Roppongi Vice. And then you look at him, and now both Orange Cassidy and Chuck Taylor. Orange Cassidy, who wasn't even part of that tag team before, has now stepped in and totally sort of like replaced him, for lack of a better word.
Trent's good in the ring, but
he is. It's just unfortunate that he is overshadowed by the charisma of whoever else he's with.
It's bad when you're overshadowed by Chuck Taylor, charisma-wise. I mean,
I've always liked Chuck Taylor.
I like Chuck Taylor, but we're not talking like he's Rocky Johnson here. You know what I'm saying? He's not just oozing charisma.
He is entertaining in a different way.
Wow.
I love Chuck Taylor. I told Chuck Taylor to his face, I hope if I ever become a wrestler, I have a career like you. And he goes, no, you don't. And I'm like, nah, man, I truly do love all of his weird Chicana stuff.
I know, but I'm just saying, like, what you just said, like, you love him, his stuff in a different way. Basically, what you just said was like, I love you, but in a different way, like a brother.
Yeah, basically, it's like my big brother.
So, yeah. Back to my point was like Chuck Taylor's not somebody just oozing charisma. So for Trent to be overshadowed by Chuck says a lot about Trent's charisma, but they're good in the ring. It's a good gimmick, and they have their place on the card. So
for sure. All right. So goes to commercial. Back from commercial, Shivani is talking to Sting, and Sting is putting over Darby after that cinematic match they had, which of course Darby hurled himself off like a couple of stories into a wooden board, just
killing Starks.
Yeah.
It was a quick promo that was interrupted, and you have Archer and Jake come out. So that was pretty much it. It was maybe 30 seconds.
Yeah, but definitely setting the stage for who's going to be next for Sting and Darby to go against.
I don't think it's going to be Sting and Darby. I think it's just going to be Sting. Maybe it'll build to Archer getting, a shot at Darby. I don't know.
Getting a shot at that TNT championship.
I would be fine with that.
Yeah. So would I, actually. I don't. I'll talk more about this when we get to that match. But so then there's a QT interview, QT and Lee Johnson, where QT talks about what happened in the tag battle royal. He kind of lost his cool, and because of that ended up being, I feel, responsible for how the Natural Nightmares got eliminated. But he talks about, he's like, but I'm not here to talk about that right now. Right here, I'm backing Lee Johnson. He's going out for his match soon, so Lee Johnson's time now.
So Lee Johnson versus Ethan Page. First time we see Ethan Page on Dynamite.
Hell yeah.
Good match. I think Johnson looks good out there as well. So, even though he's kind of a jobber, good stuff, and excuse me, at the end, we see Ethan Page. He kind of looks over at QT and goes back to the ring and just starts waylaying on Johnson, and QT just walks off.
Yeah.
Dustin Rhodes comes out, makes the save, and QT heads to the back. And two things there, I like QT. I think he's a good in-ring talent. So if they're going to do a big heel turn, I think that'll be great for him.
I'd be into it. I like QT.
At the same time, I was just thinking, wouldn't it be a great tag team, QT and Ethan Page? I know
they both have similar kinds of gear.
Yeah. So I was like, ooh, maybe we'll get that in the long run. I don't know. Be kind of cool.
Yeah, I'd be into it.
So
Anyway.
again, seeds planted. You know, they did a very good job this episode after the pay-per-view, planting all these new seeds to build off of. So yeah.
After that, we get Hangman enjoying the fruits of his win against Big Money Matt Hardy. Rolls up in the flyest looking lawnmower you've ever seen in your life.
And what a great nod to the broken gimmick too. You know, Matt Hardy with his lawnmower. And it was Hangman do when he beats Matt Hardy. He goes out and buys a lawnmower.
I know, it's so good. And he also gets big over because he says he gives a lot of the winnings that he got to charity, to education in Florida. So cool.
Yeah. I'm hoping down the road, this has nothing to do with Dynamite necessarily, but I'm hoping down the road, and it's the likelihood of this happening is probably impossible. But wouldn't it be great if we just had a Stone Cold sit in at a bar, like you're focused on Hangman Page, and he's talking to somebody about whatever problems he has, and it pans back, and you have Stone Cold there drinking a beer with Hangman Page, and it's just like, good luck, buddy, and walks off.
I can imagine that might happen. Not anytime soon, but
Right.
maybe in 5 years or so.
It'd be such a great moment to solidify Hangman's rise to the top.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, but anyway, Hangman, Dark Order. I don't know where this goes.
Yeah, they all pile on to the lawnmower except for Alan Five Angels, and go off and get ice cream.
Yeah. So yeah, well, I don't know.
So then goes to commercial. Back from commercial, we're supposed to be talking to Christian Cage, but Christian Cage doesn't come out. We hear Kenny Omega's entrance music hit. We see the dancers come out, and Kenny, Don Callis, and the Good Brothers are here to give their side of what went down and how it went down and why it went down.
Yeah. You know what? I got really excited for this for one thing. You know, you have them come out, which I thought they needed to do, come out and make a joke of it all.
Yeah.
And Kingston comes out after they berate him. Here comes Eddie Kingston. What a great moment, you know. I really hope we get a Kingston Omega feud of some sort.
Same.
And I was hoping they would do this with Mox going out injured, because I thought, you know, with the death match, there was enough there to say Mox would be out with injury. So Eddie coming out, you even had Eddie chants going off, and it was a big moment. You know, I really enjoy this. You know, you have Eddie out there with 4 guys, and they're berating him to his face, and for someone who was such a big bad guy the last episode of Dynamite, you know, to come to this point and he's turned full circle, and you want him to knock Omega out. You know, Omega's in his face. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? And he's like, Dexy, knowing full well that he's going to get his ass kicked. But you want to see that. You know, that I thought it was a great build. Of course, Mox comes out to save his buddy, and I'm thinking we're going to get a Good Brothers versus Mox and Kingston, at least a match, maybe a feud out of this. It'd be great, you know, to see them take the Impact titles.
I would be into that.
And they kind of pull that away from Kenny as they're all fighting, and then out comes Christian. And we have the Christian Kenny moment.
Yeah, the stare down.
I think depends on what they do with it. I felt like it was totally overshadowed by Eddie Kingston. I mean, you talk about somebody who won in this segment. I feel like it would be Eddie.
Although I will make an argument for Kenny Omega coming off pretty great too, because of the how much they healed going into it. You know, him and Don Callis talk about it was a win-win either way, right? They win the match, and Explosion goes off, and then hey, they win because Mox is done, right? The ring explodes. But if the explosion doesn't go off, then they just geeked out Eddie Kingston and Mox. So either way, it works for them. And then they have the whole reenactment once Eddie Kingston comes out, and Kenny Omega says the now iconic North South position 69 me Don, which to me felt so much like the old cleaner Kenny that we got in Japan. That kind of really sort of crass, in your face, mean, laughing at you ruthlessly sort of deal, which I loved. That was the Kenny that I fell in love with. That was what made me buy into Kenny Omega. So getting to see glimpses of that coming back.
There was a lot of things that Kenny said in this promo, or snuck into these promos, that you couldn't have gotten away with on other stations.
Absolutely not, no.
Other networks. But I thought, like, if you look at Mox, Kingston, and Christian, Kingston dominated this, and you could just his charisma and everything come out, and I thought it was a great segment for him. Like, Kingston got more over than Christian in this segment, in my opinion.
Oh yeah.
And I'm good with that. I would love to see them build toward a Kenny Christian feud while building toward a Kingston Kenny feud, and maybe actually like have it where they're signing a contract for Christian versus Kenny. The Good Brothers and maybe the Bucks or whoever come out, and they're all beating down Christian, and have Kingston come down for the save. But after he runs Kenny off, the contract's on the floor. Maybe Kingston's not in position for a title shot, but he signs it anyway. So, kind of stealing the match from Christian. But then when you get Kingston versus Kenny, I would love to see that. That's just what I would do.
I agree. I'm excited for what comes next, because as we both know, Jon Moxley will be going off pretty soon.
Yeah.
For paternity leave. So I'm excited to see what will spring up in its place. Mox has been such a big part of programming for quite some time. So I can only hope and imagine that they've got something really cool planned in his absence to make him, for lack of a better word, to make us not miss him as much.
I feel like, Eddie can step in for Mox. You
absolutely
have just signed. So your world title picture is kind of covered. If they want to do that, you could even push it toward like if they did what I said, you could push it towards like a triple threat aspect and having Christian, Kingston, and Kenny involved together. And then when Mox comes back, if Christian kind of costed Eddie his title shot or his match, then you could do something with Mox and Christian, which Moxley went on record before all this saying that his pick to be signed would be Christian because he'd like to work with him. So you could get that out of it as well. Just saying, from a booking standpoint. Seems like it writes itself to me. So this was not actually the end of the show.
Nope. So there was actually the women's tag match, which we had talked about earlier, because I did not find the correct order in time. So again, just retouching on that. Great match to expose this newer talent, or I shouldn't say newer talent, but this perhaps lesser known talent to American audiences. And of course, setting up. What's that?
a good match to bring you back down from that big moment with, Kenny, Christian, Eddie, Mox, the Good Brothers, all the chaos, bring you back down into this match to further the show along.
Yeah. And it definitely sets up for the two of the main events they have next week, of course, being Riho versus Maki Ito and I believe Britt Baker versus Thunder Rosa.
Yeah, Thunder Rosa, who is a tremendous talent.
Yeah.
You can't really say much else than that. I mean,
there's not much else you need to say.
Yeah.
And so after that match, they cut to Matt Hardy and Private Party talking about, how Matt Hardy lost, and he's like, we should be fine. I have safes filled with money all over the place. I'm not worried about my financial security right now. But to supplement, I've got 2 new signees, and they bring in the Butcher and the Blade and the Bunny.
Should be interesting going forward, especially since you just had Eddie Kingston's big face turn, so you got to separate that off, and it works. I think I think it'll add to everything.
And it's like how you said, they had already been kind of peeling away pieces of Eddie Kingston's group, of course, with reuniting Death Triangle and now separating him from the Butcher, the Blade, and the Bunny. Now it's kind of, he's a little bit more free to sort of, instead of being the hype man for all of these different guys, to just be out there himself. So I like that.
I think too, the Butcher and the Blade need this. I really like them as a tag team, but they've yet to really find their groove, their gimmick, their look. Something that
not only that, but I think they can really, really, and not to say anything against them, because I think they're all 3 of them, the Butcher, the Blade, and the Bunny, are all tremendous talents. But their whole gimmick in the very beginning was, like mercs for hire.
Yeah.
And they never really had that storytelling going into like other things in their matches. But for them to now be with Big Money Matt as sort of a manager for these mercs for hire, I think that can maybe go a little bit further now, add a little bit more to what's going on with them. But anyway, next matchup is probably not probably, but definitely the big match of the night, right?
Yeah.
Is Scorpio Sky sort of cashing in on his brass ring opportunity, grabbing the brass ring, right? Against Darby Allin for the AEW TNT Championship. And let me just say, I was pulling so hard for Scorpio Sky here. And no disrespect to Darby, but it's time. It's time for somebody else to be the TNT champion. I feel like I'm not really getting anything from Darby being champion, and I don't think Darby's getting anything from being champion. So there's not really much of a purpose for him to carry that belt out every week, because it's sort of this doesn't add to his character or story.
Right.
It's not helping to elevate anything.
Right.
He's a guy that just so happens to carry this championship belt around, and it's easy to forget that he's champion because it almost seems like a lesser part of who he is as a wrestler, instead of his sort of alliance with Sting. It's more like, oh look, Sting's protege Darby, who happens to be the TNT champion, not the TNT champion Darby Allin with his manager, his mentor Sting. So
Right.
I feel bad about that.
You're not wrong though. I think this is a situation where it helped to solidify Darby to start him winning the belt. He's had quite a few title defenses. I really feel the feud with Taz's group it got him more over. It became more about his feud with Taz than it did about the belt. So in that regard, like the feud itself got him over more than the belt has.
Yeah.
So it is time for the belt to pass along, I feel. Darby's kind of outgrown it. This is a situation like Paul Heyman not putting the big title on RVD despite him being kind of like the biggest guy in the company or the most over guy in the company for so long. Put him with this smaller title or, have him by himself and push the guys who needed the belt to get over. RVD never needed the belt to get over. And I kind of feel like that's where Darby is now. Yeah. He doesn't need the belt to get over. And you can kind of push him up the ladder and have feuds to build him toward another world title shot. Kenny versus Darby would be pretty good for, a month or two. So, yeah, I had kind of pulled for Scorpio to win. He needs it, I think, to advance. Hopefully we'll get another match out of it. As we saw, Scorpio lost. It looked like he was, fit to win. Then gets caught in a small package at the very end. And you can kind of feel it. I thought the match itself was great.
Yeah.
Just say, you could kind of feel that the match was going in Scorpio's favor. Like he was outclassing Darby. The cutter to the floor was great. It didn't look perfect. It wasn't picture perfect, but it was great. Darby dives out. Scorpio hits a cutter to the floor. It was the turning point in the match where you really see Scorpio start to pick it up. But he never had the killer instinct in the match. Like
not in the match, yeah.
Right. So I thought that came over tremendously well for the finish. If he had that killer instinct in the match, then he would be champion. So then we see at the end, Scorpio loses, and he snaps when Darby smacks him on the back, like, "Hey, good match." He didn't take it as that.
Yeah, no, if someone did that to me after just beating me, I would be like, "You're big timing me? What the fuck?"
Yeah, and that's what we kind of see. His eyes, his acting in this moment too was great. You see him snap and hook the heel, and everybody's out there, and then he's like, "Oh, what did I just do?" And he looks at his hands, and he's not like shaking, and he's like, "Oh shit!" It clicks at that point. Like, I could have won.
Yeah, it's like it was in me all along.
Yeah. So I thought great storytelling there. Heel turn for Scorpio Sky. I'm sure we'll get a feud out of this. Hopefully we'll get a Scorpio title win out of this feud. So yeah, it looked good. Good way to end the show. Glad both of them got that moment. It was a big moment for Scorpio.
Yeah.
I like the coffin drop powerbomb segment spot. Looks great. I really feel like Darby has grown so much in his AEW tenure so far. It was a few months back where Jim Ross made a comment about a lot of wrestlers doing the dive to the outside, moonsault to the outside, and everybody's standing around to catch them. And Jim Ross is just kind of like, everybody's out there with their dicks out, waiting in a huddle. Good guys together to catch someone who's jumping out blindly to outside the ring, and how it doesn't make any sense, And he's right. It's true. It doesn't make any sense. Now I've bitched about this a lot before. And of course, Brandon Cutler made a comment about it. And when they asked Darby Allin for comment, he said, Jim Ross is right. They're like, "Well, you've done these sorts of moves a lot. What is your opinion?" He's like, "He's right." And everybody would be smart to listen to him. I feel like Darby, maybe out of everybody on the roster, his matches before versus after joining AEW. He's listening to these voices. He's
Yeah.
listening to Jim Ross and Dean Malenko and Anderson and Blanchard or Jake, whoever is putting their input in, these veterans who've been around for, decades upon decades. He's listening. And I've noticed that his matches are so much better put together than they used to be. If you take his match versus Cody Rhodes, which really got him over, versus his match before Revolution, I think versus Joey Janela, of all people, that was a phenomenal match. Darby worked the arm the whole match, and then it played into the finish. So there's a lot of thought process that he's putting into his matches and whatnot. Psychology. What is that word? For a wrestling match in, this day and age in the 2020s, using psychology in a wrestling match where, you're working a body part and fitting it into the match to show that, hey, there's a reason why you're doing a hammerlock in the beginning. There's a reason why you're working the arm. And then to have, like in that particular match, Joey Janela, having the arm trapped underneath of him when he hits the coffin drop, it makes sense, and it just adds a little bit more legitimacy to the matchup. Even with Scorpio, there was a sense of desperation, especially after you take the cinematic match they just had, where he's obviously hurt from dropping 2 stories through a table or whatever on what's his face. So in this matchup, I feel like it really put Scorpio over for him to be desperate, and the only way Darby could win was by pulling out that small package in the end. Yeah. That's my take on it. I thought it was a good ending, good build throughout the show.
Well, that wasn't the end of the show, though.
What else did they have?
They had the big war council at the end.
That's right. That was the last match.
That was the last match.
The war council. I liked it. It was a great way to end the show. Definitely a surprise ending. I think it's something we also coming, but at the same time, it seemed like out of the blue, kind of. Like we get this clip of MJF talking with the others of the inner circle, minus Jericho, and they all seem like they're on board. I kind of feel like it needed more time. Like we've built and built and built so slow, and then it was like, end it. So I kind of like to have seen that stretched out a little bit more. Of course, what we get the video footage. Sammy comes out. Jericho made mention of hiring another talent. MJF is against it. Says, I think we need to fire somebody. Of course, we all know that means Jericho because MJF wants to take over the group. And then Sammy comes out, and they all get into it. Sammy's like, see the footage. We get the
hidden camera.
Yeah. MJF talking with the others. And then it's like, get them, boys. Of course, everybody walks over. Then they turn around. Joke's on you. We all still talk. So it seemed like it happened really quickly.
And it seems at that point like it's just they're gonna oust MJF from the group.
Yeah, I would like to know the week maybe had Sammy back and reunite Sammy and Jericho. If not, in the inner circle, just Sammy and Jericho have a backstage moment and kind of build to that, like, hey, see, whatever, and had MJF kind of, I don't know.
See, I'm of the opposite, and I actually like kind of went down, because I don't really want a specific reconciliation between Sammy Guevara and Jericho. Like, I don't want it to seem like, yeah, they're cool, or that Sammy might rejoin the inner circle, because and man, this is going to be hard for me to admit, but I actually like Sammy Guevara as more of like a face than I do a heel. He's a great heel, but I enjoy this sort of redemption of Sammy Guevara, where he's sort of trying to distance himself from the shitty things that he's done in his past. He's trying to be a better person. Like, I like that better.
I think you
for
can
him.
still get that. Like, I mean, this definitely feels like a face turn for the inner circle. You know, of course, lights go out. You know, of course, MJF says, you know, hey, I wasn't trying to take over inner circle. I got my own group. Lights go out. You have FTR, Tully, and Sean Spears out there. And both cliques start bashing away at each other. I think what leaves me a little dismayed here was that it's just out of left field. You know, it's like we've had this build for so long with Tully. Originally, Tully and Sean Spears trying to find him a tag partner. Then you get FTR, and we never saw that, you know, FTR and Sean
come together fully,
as a stable. And we just got that like last Dynamite, where Sean Spears comes back, and it was like, okay, they're going to get a fourth member finally. But now we have 5 members, and it's not like Tully is the mastermind. And I think that's what bothers me, is that MJF is the mastermind instead of Tully. And I could see having MJF as the guy of the group, but yeah, I just feel like it's an odd pairing somewhat. I like the look, like they are all in black, even Wardlow, hair down, all in black. I'm just not sold on it yet. You know, I feel like, you know, Wardlow in the group, if it just been Wardlow coming over, Wardlow flipping MJF off and joining this group, and headlining it with Sean Spears would have been fine. Yeah, I don't know.
That's because everybody's dying for the moment that Wardlow turns on MJF. Everybody's just like counting the seconds until it happens, which I'm part of that group as well. Because you know, MJF is such a great heel. You can't wait to watch him get his ass kicked. Like, you're just dying for it. I know, because I too am dying for it all the time.
And I think that's one of the things too. He's such a pariah that having him in a group to do his bidding, just you want him to take advantage of people like a Jericho, and then, you know, that guy turn face and beat the shit out of him. I don't think he needs a group for that to happen. So I don't know. I don't know what they have planned, but yeah, I like Tully more of a mastermind than MJF as a mastermind. So
I have to agree. That is true. I didn't totally think of that, but it is definitely sort of like thinking about it, it's a bummer for you to sort of steal that thunder, for lack of a better word, from Tully, because it's more believable that Tully, with, you know, the knowledge and experience, would be able to fit the pieces together a little bit better. But
yeah, it is what it is. It'll be interesting to see what they do with the inner circle and all this. So, especially afterwards. But there's a lot to work with there. So, good stuff.
Yeah.
All around. I mean, everything on the show was perfectly planned, in my opinion.
I agree. I do like how Dynamite. Oh man, it's the first time he's featured.
Yeah.
You've got to give him the big introduction.
The big introduction. This is
Yeah.
this is the Eater of Worlds. Yeah,
Perfect.
he sure is. You want a cookie?
Another
You made it
future world
just in
champ.
time for into the show.
And that's our big surprise run-in at the end of our
That's a
show.
run-in at the end of the show. Yeah. Say hi.
He's like, no.
Right.
Mommy.
Oh, here's the world champ. Here's the future world champ too. It's a big reunion.
It's a big reunion.
Yeah.
It's been a while since we've had the future world champ on the show, so
Yeah.
glad that she can make her return.
Yeah. We have
He woke me up.
Oh well.
He kicked me in the eye this morning.
That's how we do it around here.
It's very, very appropriate for your family.
It is.
All right, and with that, since the champs are up, it is time for us to wrap this up. So this has been, thank you for watching. Hopefully, if you've watched this whole thing, this is wrapping up our episode of Mid-Card Mana. We got over on Sam Keola, the wrestling connoisseur's side, he's building a stable, see? So he's got the Eater of Worlds and the future world champ, Allison. And then I'm here by myself, just the loose cannon.
You're the Mox of our group. Apparently, I'm Kingston.
I'm the Mox. I'm fine with that.
You're Mox. You know,
I'm fine
I
with
got my
this.
stable.
Yeah, you're stable. And I just have myself and my kid that's coming soon. Who knows from where?
Is that coming soon?
All right.
What does that mean?